The Chicago Bulls once again find themselves at a crossroad, this time having to decide on what the direction that they want to take with their expiring contracts. We'll talk a little bit about that and the decisions that the front office has to make, the fan base expectations, and why we need to check talking about tanking and all trades. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're going to break down all that, which direction AK could and should pick, and dive into the mailbag. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it for today, y'all. So I want to start off with a topic about this Bulls team, right? And this is a topic that we've talked a lot about, and I think kind of the expectations from certain fans, they waver per whatever the Bulls are doing at that given moment, right? But there are fans that have been for the Chicago Bulls for the last 3 years, is the fans that say, blow it all up, let players walk away for nothing, do all that type of stuff, whatever else. Then you have the fan base is like, hey, listen, we need to make changes, but that doesn't mean that everybody on this team that's currently on it needs to go, right? One thing that I commonly fight against, and I don't like the idea, is when people say anything about, oh, well, this player would only be such and such on X team. It really depends on any given moment. Yeah, of course, there's some players that are always going to be back into the bench players for sure. But go and look at some of the players that have played key roles in finals and look at where they've been, right? And look at where their careers have gone. So it really comes down to the team and the makeup that you have. And so I commonly look at something more so at, let's find what we're missing. And, this Bulls team is missing rim defense and a rim protecting big and a more defensive-minded center. With the Bulls, as long as they have the perimeter defense that they have, as far as just about everybody on the perimeter is bad in pick and roll. Modest is hit or miss depending on the specific matchup in pick and roll defense, but Josh Giddey and Coby White, while they've both taken strides as on-ball defenders over the last couple of years, that pick and roll defense, it leaves a lot to be desired. And typically when you have a team like that, you want a big man that can control the paint, that's switchable, right? And not to say that he needs to be able to, that a center would need to be able to stay with guards for the entirety of a possession, but if they do get switched onto a guard, they have a capability of at least staying with them until the defense can reset, right? And that's really what you're looking at there. And so I think that type of center would be something that really does change things for this Bulls team, even if it's not a star level center, right? I think that it changes quite a bit as far as the way that this team has looked. Just look at how much better we are on the court when Zach Collins is out there. Zach Collins isn't some great on-ball switchable center. He's not, but he's an active defensive center. He gives action on both sides of the ball as far as staying activity, being big, staying in the paint. He does those type of things, right? So that's where to get back to this front office, what they're going to have to decide on at this trade deadline. They have to make the decision on which one of these guys are here worth keeping, and then which one of these guys can we use to get something that can help us in the future. I've said it many times. I think that regardless if you like all these guys or not, if the Bulls don't make some type of move consolidating some of these expiring contracts for something else, then then they really would have to hit a home run hit in the summer of 2026 for me to believe in it, because there's just not teams that have $71 million in expiring contracts, whether that is you trading and landing the bigger name player in the trade, whether that's you playing facilitator and stacking a future draft asset for a player that's not going to be part of your future. One of the worst things that AK could do this season is let all these expiring contracts go, keep some of those guys, but then some of those other guys walk away scot-free for nothing, and they end up signing or with a team that actually values them. These players have value, contrary to what some people will have you believe, for like Alt Vaughn, not the original Vaughn, but Alt Vaughn, who just, apparently hates European players. It just says trade everyone for just two-way players. Like, that's going to fix everything with this team. But you do need to acquire two-way players. There's no doubt about that, right? I've said, one of the things in this offseason that I said about re-signing Giddey, when everybody was worried about the fit, and they try to compare it to Levine, I'm like, it's not the same, because what you need around Giddey is pretty much what you're going to need for any team. Ideally, 3-and-D wings that are switchable in defense. Like, if you look at teams, that's kind of what you want around any team in the NBA if you're going to be the solid team that's on offense and defense. So, that's why I didn't have an issue with it. So you got to start acquiring some of the things, and that does not mean that these players have all had terrible seasons. They haven't. Kevin Huerter has had a terrible three-point shooting season for the Bulls, but everything else, the assist rate goes up when he's on, the rebounding, the block shots from Kevin Huerter as well has just been ridiculous to see the number of block shots that Kevin Huerter has had this season. And it's at the point now where I don't even know if you can call it a fluke because it's happening so consistently for Kevin Huerter. But he's shooting 46% from the field, just 32% from three. So it's not great there. Not the 37% he shot from three after we traded him. But, he's doing a lot of other things. Almost 4 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, right under a steal and a block per game. Kevin Huerter is giving you something. If you know or have any doubt that Kevin Huerter is going to want to stay here, or you don't want to keep Kevin Huerter, you trade him for something. Even if that something is a future lottery, a top 18 protected pick, or a couple of second-round picks, that gives you the one thing that AK has really lacked at doing for this team is future stacking of assets, right? Giving the Bulls a pool of assets that they can have, and that even if they don't use, like they don't plan on drafting all the players or draft picks, you can throw those seconds in to kind of fluff up another deal and get it done, right? So that's the kind of thing that I think AK has missed the ball on, and I know we won't have the full story because best believe if the Bulls make no moves at the trade deadline, I'm at that point going to probably expect AK to keep most of the players and run it back with maybe trying to find a center to replace Nikola Vucevic. There is a complete world in which that happens. And not to say that that's the best, it's just a world that I could see. But AK has to show us something. And I think the same thing for fans. Like, I say this all the time on live streams. The Bulls are not tanking. They're not inadvertently tanking. They're not going to intentionally tank. None of that's happening. This team is going to hover around, 38 to 40 wins this season like they always do, but they're not tanking. Now, that doesn't mean that the pick can't be great. We've seen teams come out, play-in teams that don't make it out the play-in, get the number 1 overall pick. We've seen that happen before. So who's to say that it can't happen for the Bulls again? But I just think for those that are holding out this hope that the Bulls are going to turn into this intentionally tanking team because we have injuries or because we lose a certain amount of games, I think that they've shown their hand. And when people show you who they are continually, it's not like it's a one-off thing. Sometimes you got to just believe it. You just got to take that for what it is and believe it. And I think a lot of Bulls fans are suffering from what their expectation is on what they want to see the team do because they've locked in on, us bottoming out and tanking is the only way possibly out of this. That they have marked that as their only view. That's what they think is the only outcome, and it's just not. Now, one could say that there's signs for success and hurt in both those areas, depending on where you decide to go with it. But this front office has showed us they have talent on this team. They believe in. They're not going to jettison off that talent. They're not going to intentionally lose to hurt the talent. And in that development, everything with their words and their actions have matched. And while some people want to say dumbass shit like Eco Bean, who said, well, P. Will wouldn't be playing any minutes if we weren't tanking. It's like, you're stupid. Because, when we were all fully healthy, how many minutes was P. Will getting? P. Will's only seen extended minutes. We've had some substantial injuries to the team. And even that is still silly in of itself, right? So it's some things that I get it as fans that we look at, and especially when you hear all these trade rumors that pop out every single other day on the Bulls being, in the running for this player, having an interest on this player, like between Sabonis, Anthony Davis, who else was Michael Porter Jr. was a recent one to pop up. Trey Murphy III, Herb Jones was names that popped up in that time period as well. Like, we heard that even if the Bucks do decide to jetting off Giannis, that they decide to trade Giannis and sell other pieces, we could be in Oman. Like, there's been so many rumors. And I get that it's hard sometimes to separate what is article speculation by the writer and what is actual genuine reporting, right? And, a lot of people don't have time to go through and read every article for detail. They just see the headline and they're like, oh, bet this is what the Bulls trying to do. And I understand that. And that's up for like people like me and outlets like me to kind of, separate the real from the fake in a lot of ways. And I try my best to do that. I cover everything, but when I cover it, I try to make sure that I point out, hey, this isn't a rumor. This is, speculation, or hey, this is actually a rumor. Mark Stein is saying he's heard NBA GM say X, right? And in a time where the Bulls have every reason to make moves, and I want to be clear there, when these type of trade rumors pop up, there's reason to believe it, right? We just got to see what's going to happen. Hearing that Coby and Ayo still remain as two of the probably more higher coveted guards that could be on the trade market, and then we've heard, kind of after Trae Young, the teams are going to want to see what happens with Trae. It kind of makes some sense, but that doesn't mean that the Bulls are going to make the move. Just because they listen to the deal doesn't mean it's going to be a good deal. And I think that's where AK has dropped the ball, because no fan really has faith that AK is going to make the right deal. And I can't blame any fan for feeling or thinking that way. So when we talk about the Bulls being at a crossroads, it's really a crossroads of who do you want to keep, what offers, even if it's an offer that we feel is super valuable, even for a player that we may be considering, re-signing and letting return. You may still have to weigh the value of the asset and really take an evaluation of where you are. It would be different if this Bulls team was 5-6 games above 500. And then you're looking at this team and you're like, hey, man, we got a real shot here in the Eastern Conference. Let's hold on to the pieces. Let's fold them and let's just hold on to it. But that's not where the Bulls are. We're talking about the Bulls contending maybe for a spot to avoid the play-in and maybe hopefully get out the play-in if they're in it. But we still got a lot to figure out before we get there. It's going to take some patience. I get it. We've all been tired of waiting. All Bulls fans are tired of waiting on this team to do something. The whole "it's been 10 years" crowd, the Met Pet crowd, it is what it is. But we will continue to cover it, and we'll see what AK does at this crossroads, because this could be the determining factor on what really sets him up for the summer of 2026, which I do think the Bulls have to make a serious move in the summer of 2026 to get closer to something meaningful in the East. If not, we're starting to run up into that period where it's going to start getting rocky for a GM. I've said it. Most presidents of basketball operations, they get about 10 years on the job. AK is coming up on year 7 soon. And I think if year 7, which will be next year, we don't look like we're starting, you're going to start hearing some rumblings of some discontent in Chicago. And that's all I can say. But with that said, it is Sunday. That means it is Mailbag Day. Let's get into these voicemails, man. This one's from TJ.
What's up, Hayes? It's TJ from the Rowan. Man, I got a question for you, G. Say that the Bulls are able to keep up or show a level of consistency that we haven't really been able to see this whole season. We go on the win streak, then we go on the losing streak, then we go on another win streak, and then we go on another losing streak. Let's say that we are able to find some sort of a middle ground, some sort of a mean or median on how we're going to play, some sort of a consistency without Coby and Giddey. What does that say for our team? Does it change the outlook or how we look at this team, or is it still like we still got to do what we got to do, if you get what I'm saying, if I'm wording that properly? Like, if you were in AK's shoes, even after all the mountains and the valleys of this season, if you see them trying to find some sort of a groove without Coby and Giddey, do you just basically stand pat as we've been doing basically since AK and them been in the office? Or do you still try and find some sort of a way to shake up this team to, change I don't even know how I'm trying to word this, but basically just to change it up a little bit. Let me know what you think, man. Hey.
I don't think that changes the outlook of anything substantial. Listen, if this team finds a rhythm while Coby and Giddey and Zach Collins are out, I don't expect anybody to look at it any different internally from the Chicago Bulls and saying, all right, bet, now that we got our guys back, let's go out here and let's really attack it. If that's what we were able to do, let's go out here and finish the job. Let's go out here and compete for the 6th seed or something like that, right? Now, I do think regardless of any of that, whether the Bulls thrive, whether they don't thrive, they should be looking for some rim protection in the defensive-minded center. That's my focus for the Chicago Bulls. That's what I would love to see the Chicago Bulls attack this offseason, get that defensive-minded center in there. I think that's going to change a lot for you if you can do that, but we'll see if the Bulls do it. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Hayes? It's Shay. Look here, man. I know you may think, oh, Shay, you was a big supporter of Vooch, and now you're getting on his case all of a sudden. But the reason why I'm doing that is because of this. Hey, I'm a pure basketball purist. And I believe this. When you're a veteran on a young team, not only that, you've been a former All-Star before, and you've been on teams like this. And I've actually seen Vooch calm the situation down More times than not. More times than not when he was in Orlando. All right? Sometimes you got to be like, all right, cool. Giddy's out. Kobe's out. Run the offense through me, because it's not like your game requires a lot of athleticism, nor does it require, honestly, I think his game, offensive-wise, can really calm the team down, because if you run the ball through him, he can get y'all easy passes going to the paint, or basically what I'm saying is he's a good passing big man. Look, I want this team to be better, but I feel like as a veteran, I feel like Vooch should look to guide this team due to the fact that not only is he because he's a former All-Star, but you've been the face of franchises before, of teammates who weren't really as talented, and that has been as young. And think about it. I've seen him take a team with a starting DJ Augustine at point guard to the playoffs, not once, but 2 times. But hey, that's just the past. A lot has changed since then. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Listen, I think it's just time to stop expecting anything from Vooch. And that's not to say that there aren't going to be some games where Nikola Vucevic looks good. It will happen. There will be games where Vooch looks really good. It's going to happen. But I will say outside of that, like, I think it's just like expecting him to step up as a veteran. No, I don't expect that. Expecting him to all of a sudden become something better defensively than what he's been. I don't expect that. It's depending on expecting him to be what he was at one point early in it. I don't expect that anymore. I think we've seen Vooch age in the last year of this deal. Either that or he just wants out of Chicago that bad. Either way, I think it's time to stop expecting anything from Nikola Vucevic. And when we get it, great. Like I said, there are going to be games where Nikola Vucevic looks good. There are going to be games where Vooch hits some big shots, and maybe even another game winner. But I think it's time to stop expecting anything from Vooch. And unfortunately, this is just the experience and the train that we're on for the rest of the season, and hopefully it ends after this season for sure. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, this is personal caller, man. I'm just responding to your MPJ, possible trade rumors and whether or not he'd be a good fit on the Bulls. And while I think having another 3-point shooter who can shoot over 40% would be great, I think we run a little bit into the whole Zach LaVine problem, where yes, he can run up the scoreboard, but he's not a number one. I think he was paired with someone who can get down low and attack the basket, or who can draw double teams and then can kick out to him from behind the arc. That would be great, but we really don't have that guy on the team. And even if there were just other guys who can, who have this natural ability, who have a great first step to attack the room from the guard position and then once again kick out to PJ, or that have him surrounded by guys who are, a couple of defensive stalwarts. But once again, that's not the Bulls right now. No trade for him wouldn't make any sense. I think the Bulls should focus more on the teams that are going to be having salary cap problems next year. The Pelicans, the Mavericks, just the teams that don't have a whole lot of money and are, at the bottom of the barrel of the NBA. If I was the Bulls, I'd probably take a swing at the Pelicans, Trey Murphy and DeJounte Murray. I'd also Vooch, P. Will, Coby White, and Dalen Terry. And they're definitely going to work the 2027 first round pick, which I'd have to give them. And probably the Portland pick too, which would hurt, but it is what it is. And I just think that, Murphy would fit better money-wise and time. He doesn't have the injury problems that MPJ has had in the past. Murray does have injury problems, but I would like him to play alongside someone like an Ayo or Giddy in the future. You know, I think it would look right. What's your opinion? Thanks.
When it comes to Michael Porter Jr., I think it's best to just leave it simple. Michael Porter Jr. is a player that we've seen it. He can play on winning teams. Somebody left a comment the other day on the Michael Porter Jr. and they're like, well, he couldn't play with Jokic. It's like, did you actually look at that? Like, he actually played really well off Jokic. He did have some down years, but it wasn't because of his inability to play with Jokic. It's because of injuries, right? So Michael Porter is a player that can play on a winning team. We've seen that, right? We've seen that. Now, what place does he have to have? Some would say that Michael Porter Jr. was the third, sometimes even the fourth option behind Jokic and Murray and Aaron Gordon. And so because of that, it's like, okay, like, I'm not mad if the Bulls use an expirings to get him. If it's players that they're like, hey, we know that these guys aren't staying, but we're going to acquire him at the trade deadline, try to give us a boost in the arm and look for long-term fit. Cool. If that's what you want to do, cool. But I just think that what we're seeing from MPJ in Brooklyn, you're not going to see that if he is ever back on a winning team because his role is just different. Like, he's not a great defender at all. He's not a great passer. Not a bad passer either. I won't say he's not like a black hole like some people try to make him out to be early in his career, but he's not an amazing passer either. So I think you just got to take your time with that one. We'll see what happens with the Michael Porter Jr. rumors. All right, let's get into this last one, man. This one's from Doug.
Hey, Hayes, this is Doug with a random basketball question for you that hopefully you have an answer for. First, I'd like to apologize right up front if this ends up being a stupid question because of some rule that I don't know about. And I also want to say that I am completely against tanking or trading either one of Coby or Ayo. But if the Bulls were to basically give up on this season, especially because of all the injuries, and trade both Coby and Ayo, what's to stop them from re-signing them this coming off season whenever they become free agents? If they was to trade both of them, I feel like they could get, some kind of package back that would be like multiple first round picks and salary matching players, or maybe a starting caliber center that we're looking for, or a forward to put beside Mons Buzelis as a starter. Maybe even a way to put Patrick Williams' contract in with that and use all that combined money to get a star caliber player. But I know the Bulls would take a risk on losing both Coby and Ayo by not being able to re-sign them. But if Coby and Ayo both knew that, the Bulls were willing to pay them this coming off season the numbers that they wanted, then they would know not to take at least anything less than that. And because the Bulls be willing to pay them their money to get them back that off season, it'd be kind of like renting them to another team for 6 months just to re-sign them for what you was going to re-sign them for anyhow. But the team that they'd come back to would have maybe better players on it, or you'd have future first-round picks to use to make your team better. But just curious if maybe that was an option, or what you think on that. Keep up the good work. Thank you. God bless.
If the Bulls give up on the season and trade either Coby or White, would they be able to re-sign them as free agents? Yeah, but they wouldn't have bird rights. I think you got to remember is that while people like to say, well, the Bulls don't ever go over the salary cap. We're over the salary cap every single year. We don't go into the luxury tax. The Bulls would probably not be able to re-sign both Ayo and Coby because they wouldn't have their bird rights anymore. Bird rights are what allows you to go over the salary cap to re-sign a player. Either that or an exception. You don't have an exception that's worth $30 million to re-sign Coby. You don't have an exception that's worth the 16 to 18 to re-sign Ayo. So you would need actual cap space, not just space below the luxury tax, but a space below the salary cap. And that's where it can get a little sticky for the Chicago Bulls trying to keep all that and trying to gain the center. So it's probably not going to happen that way. If you see them traded, they're probably going to be traded. And that's just it. They don't have some backdoor deal to re-sign them at any point in time. Just because the bird rights aspect of that is what changes that outlook a little bit, Doug. But great question, fair question. I mean, and you guys can ask questions. I'll be better at not being mean about certain ones and certain people. But guys, that's going to do it for today's episode of Chicago Bulls Central, man. You guys are amazing. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, where do you think this team is really headed? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. We'll be covering everything as closely as we always do. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. And like I like to end every episode on, stay safe, go Bulls, and always see red if you can. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.